Where do members of the 2024 Sharks Draft fit inside the prospect pool? We rank the top 10 San Jose Sharks prospects.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be exploring the Sharks prospect pool and kind of ranking them. And look at how I had the prospects before the draft. And then now what happens when we have the infusion of the 2024 draft class. And I'm going to give my top 10 rankings and kind of go from there. So before we get into all that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, I have to start with the rules because I think there has to be a defined what's a prospect and what is it. So here are kind of my rules, and of course they're an arbitrary number, but this is just kind of my rules on what I say is a prospect, at least in my eyes, and what isn't. So, number one, under 50 games played. So this cuts out William Eklund and Henry Thrun. Eklund would have been in the top 10 if he was still eligible, but is not. So he does not make the list. Also has to be under 25, which all these players are easily under 25, except for goalies who can be under 26. And then number 3, upside is king. If two guys are very close, I'm going to go with the guy who I think has a higher upside compared to maybe a safer floor. So that's the Halttunen Luca Cagnoni debate. I talked about it last time when I did my pre-draft rankings, why I chose Cagnoni over Halttunen. But that's always going to be the why do I pick this? Why do I pick that, guys? Because I think they have a higher upside. Does it mean they hit their ceiling? No, but that's why I kind of chose those guys. So let's go back and look at my top 10 pre-draft rankings. That way you have a nice reminder of where I had guys ranked. And got some feedback last time I should have made slides. I went through it. I made slides this time for that one member on YouTube. But if you're listening, make sure it's audio only as well. So pre-draft, I had number 10, Ethan Cardwell. Number 9, Eric Polkamp. Number 8, David Edstrom. Number 7, Filip Bystedt. Number 6, Danil Gushchin. Number 5, Kasper Halttunen. Number 4, Luca Cagnoni. Number 3, Shakir Mukhamadullin. Number 2, Quentin Musty. And of course, number 1, Will Smith. So, there could be some quibbling. I continue to go back and forth on the Cagnoni Halttunen debate on those two guys, but I still feel really good about kind of where I have a lot of guys slotted in. I know guys like Tristan Robbins, Thomas Borlow were in my honorable mentions, and I'll kind of go through my honorable mentions here in just a second. But it's spoiler. There's 3 members of the 2024 draft class that make the Sharks top 10 here, and you have a lot of talented players in this prospect pool. Looking at that, right, you have even that list, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 first round picks just in that top 10 list, and that doesn't include adding the 2024 draft class. 5 top 10 top It's 5 first-round picks in that between Edstrom, Bystedt, Mukhamadullin, Musty, and Smith, and then you add this year's draft class. Like, this just shows how talented a pool that these Sharks have been accumulating over the couple years. So let's get to the honorable mentions in this group. So these guys just missed the cut. So honorable mentions: Thomas Borla, and this is just an alphabetical order. Did not rank the honorable mentions, just wanted to go alphabetical order. So Thomas Borlo, Ethan Cardwell, David Edstrom, first round pick, can't even make the top 10. Matthias Havled, Eric Polkamp, Tristan Robbins, Georgi Romanov, and Leo Salin-Wallenius, who the Sharks drafted in the second round this year. So like, of these guys, Edstrom would have been the last man in if I was ranking them. So he was the last man out. He was the bubble guy there. But you look at like Robbins and Borla, both second round picks. Wallenius a second round pick. Matthias Havled, a second round pick. There's a ton of talented players in this. In some prospect pools, like these would be like easily in other, if you look at some of the bottom prospect pools, like Bordeaux and Robbins and Wallenius and Havled and Edstrom would be like easily in their, top 5 in some of cases, like compared to what the Sharks have. And that's, again, part of the process here of kind of going through a rebuild, is acquiring a lot of these assets. So I think we have to start out with number 10, of course, who is Filip Bystedt, the 2022 first round pick out of Linköping in the SHL. Last year spent 51 games in the SHL, where he scored 9 goals, 10 assists, and 66 shots on goal before making his jump over to the AHL. And as I talked about with Edstrom and Bystedt, I feel like Edstrom has a bit safer floor, because I think worst case scenario for Edstrom is just like a super awesome, like defensively responsible center. While I think Bystedt has a little bit more offense. And I know if you compare their offensive games last year, Bysted's offense was less than Edstrom's, but I still think there's another kind of step for Bystedt. We saw it, especially when he made the jump over to the Barracuda, in that sample. I know small sample size, but I think his game is more suited for a smaller NHL or smaller North American style ice. And I expect Bystedt to kind of have a really good season in the Barracuda, playing top 6 line minutes. Whether he's the 1C or the 2C, we'll can kind of figure out how that goes with the training camp and stuff. But if Bystedt has a solid season, expect him to make his NHL debut at some point this year, probably after the trade deadline, when the Sharks kind of continue to sell off whatever assets they can sell off. But if he has a solid season, I think Bystedt can be playing in the NHL this year. And I still think he has a touch higher ceiling, where he's going to be more of a scoring impact at the third line, potentially maybe play second line winger, while I think Edstrom is going to be safer floor. Like Edstrom is definitely going to be playing NHL games, but I think Bystedt's still kind of scratching the surface of what he can become. So next on the list, one of the new guys, Igor Chernyshov, the second round pick out of Dynamo Moscow in the KHL. 44 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 51 shots on goal in the again, that's in the KHL as a 18-year-old player playing in the KHL. Much more dynamic scoring in the MHL. And spoiler, I'm working on my Chernyshov deep dive right now, and I might actually be a little too low here on Chernyshov, just because of the way his game is so adaptable to whatever he is kind of asked. Like, if you need him to be a power forward scoring guy on the first line, he can do that. If you want him to be a defensively responsible kind of bottom 6 guy, he was doing that as well, again, as an 18-year-old against grown men in the KHL, is one of the best leagues in the world. as I'm watching his game tape, thoroughly impressed with the way that he plays, and his style of play is going to fit in really well with the Sharks. And I think he has a top 6 ceiling, with him, but I think he's probably kind of settles in a middle 6 type of role. But he's going to be a perfect complementary piece to whoever he plays with, because his ability to adapt and play a professional style. So we'll have more on Chernyshov later, probably this week, as I continue my kind of digging through the game tape, trying to put that together, reading through scouting profiles. I'm going to kind of put everything together and do an episode, kind of like how we did with Sam Dickinson. Was it last week or the week before? So keep an eye out for that. So we'll continue into the top 8 here and see how the rankings change compared to last year, and see where Dickinson and Celebrini finish up. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leveled up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're bringing rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, let us continue by going into the top 8 here. And Danil Gushchin, who was number 6, down to number 8 here again with the new additions. So Gushchin, 2020 third round pick, the only member of the 2020 class in the top 10 here. Of course, playing with the Barracuda last year, 56 games, 20 goals, 34 assists, 209 shots on goal. I think he would have had a more prolific season if he didn't get injured. Got injured right before All-Star break. This is why he had to miss the All-Star game. And once he came back, was a little slow, but really ended the season strongly. So I think if he doesn't get hurt, we're talking about a potential 30-goal AHL performance from him. He missed it took him several weeks to kind of get back into the swing of things there. So for Gushchin, as we talked about yesterday with the roster reset, I still think he's going to be fighting for an NHL job, but probably starting the season with the Barracuda, and then going to be playing some NHL games later this year. Still, that shot of his and that skill of his is what's so tantalizing, because it is an NHL shot, right? And he does have to continue to kind of round out the rest of his game, but I still think that at the end of the day, he could still be a second line scoring winger, especially behind what the Sharks have added here. So Danil Gushchin at number 8 now. Again, Sharks have had a lot of talents here, which is kind of crazy to consider Gushchin at number 8. So continuing up here, we have, of course, Kasper Halttunen at number 7. So Halttunen, of course, also insane shot. Bigger guy, of course, playing, and I think that's the size advantage of Halttunen over Gushchin. They have very similar skill sets. Halttunen, at least when it comes with the shot. Halttunen, though, different players, but Halttunen's shot combined with his size gives him the edge there. Last year with London, 75 games, 49 goals, 67 assists, 270 shots on goal, and is an absolute monster with that shot. And I will say, his game has grown on me so much, especially compared to what I saw at the beginning of the season last year, and then what we saw in the playoffs. Halttunen really, I think, is you saw a lot of improvement. Still has some, of course, has work to do, but you saw, I think, just becoming a better 200-foot hockey player, and not just a power play merchant. dude's going to be able to score. He's going to be able to score a ton of goals. And if he's got Celebrini or Will Smith or William Eklund or whoever setting him up, he's going to score a ton of goals. But for him, it's, can you do the other things to keep you on the ice if you're not scoring? And I think he's continuing to round out his game. And as he, again, he's got a pro style shot right now. It's, can you do the other stuff? And I think he's well on his way. So going to be a guy who's going to be an interesting decision if the Sharks send him back to the OHL. Or remember, since he was in Europe playing when he was drafted, he can go straight into the AHL despite him not being 20 yet. So I think for him, it's probably best to play in the Barracuda as he continues to grow and develop, because I think playing in the OHL, he's going to be just a, big fish in a little pond there. So I'd like to see him kind of continue his game and continue his growth and development playing with the Barracuda this season. So, all right, next we have Luca Cagnoni, 2023 fourth round pick out of Portland in the WHL. 78 games, 21 goals, 82 assists, 269 shots on goal. That's playoffs. Same thing with Halttunen in there. And as I mentioned, as I kind of made this debate last time between Halttunen and Cagnoni, I just think Cagnoni has a higher. I think he has his ceiling would be more of an impact player in all three zones, where I think he could potentially be like a high-end second pairing defenseman who can run a power play and kind of do a lot of different things, right? I think he can create offense. I think his defense is underrated and is something that he'll continue to develop, especially as a smaller player. But I know he's a fourth round pick. He should not have been a fourth round pick. He should have been a second round pick last year. And scoring 90 points in the WHL is that something you see every day. And another guy who can either go back to juniors, or since he'll be 20 in December, he could be playing on the Barracuda. And it's another one of those guys where I think it'll be really interesting how the Sharks handle his development, especially with the expectation of like Jake Furlong, who should be making his debut on the Barracuda. The Barracuda have added some kind of top end AHL defensemen and Schultz and Carlson. You're going to have Jack Thompson. You might have, one of Shakir Mukhamadullin and or Henry Thrun. So there's the Barracuda's defense is going to be more competition on it. It's still probably going to be very, very young. But, if Luca Cagnoni has a really, really nice preseason, like he could be fighting for a Barracuda job this year. And I know Portland, if it goes back to Portland will still be a really good team, as they always are a good team. But can Cagnoni show enough, I think, in his own zone to warrant the Sharks to let him go pro, or maybe even go into ECHL to play with the Wichita Thunder for a little while, which is a little bit more rough and tumble league than the AHL, but could be an opportunity for him to, again, you're playing professional hockey. So interesting decisions with Cagnoni. We'll hit number 4 here. If I do number 5, if I'm doing my math right. Yep. So number 5 is Shakir Mukhamadullin, 2020 first round pick. Played with the San Jose Barracuda last year in the AHL. 55 games, 7 goals, 27 assists, 104 shots on goal. Probably should have played more NHL games than the 3 last year, but had his season shut down with an injury. And I know he was a little bit kind of beat up when he went to the AHL All-Star game. Played in some games afterwards, but they eventually kind of shut him down. He could be a guy that we're looking at as someone who graduates into next year. Especially if he makes the team out of camp. And I think, like I mentioned yesterday when we did our roster reset, I right now project him to be a guy who makes the team out of camp, because I think as he's entering the last year of his ELC, you kind of want to see what you got with Mukhamadullin, and if he can handle the rigors of playing a full NHL season. I think he showed himself very, very well in the AHL last year. Was a Sharks kind of prospect of the year, or the AHL Barracuda Player of the Year. I thought he looked really good in the 3 games he got in the NHL. Let's see it. Let's kind of take the training wheels off. Let's see what Mukhamadullin can do, and hopefully we can, kind of pencil him in to be a guy for the Sharks for the foreseeable future. Is and really kind of as they overhaul this defensive group. So we'll get into the top 4 here. I think you guys probably know the names. It's just going to be what order are they in? So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. If you want to go catch a baseball game wherever you're at, of course, you want to go see the Giants, want to go see the A's, again, wherever you want to catch a game, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Price on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all on prices views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They have a bunch of great last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals. So if you're maybe a bit of a procrastinator and you're like, hey, let me just keep waiting to see when the prices go down, Game Time has got you covered. They make it easy to find and buy MLB tickets and for any kind of event. So if you want to go to a concert, comedy show, whatever, Game Time has got you covered. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Number 4, Quentin Musty. So I know there's going to be people like, this is, we're picking nits here between Musty and Dickinson and Will Smith and Celebrini. Well, not really much with Celebrini, but Quentin Musty, I have number 4. Amazing season last year with Sudbury. 61 games, had 45 goals, 67 assists, and this is all including playoffs, with 243 shots on goal. Musty is unfortunately in a terrible situation because it's either NHL or bust with him, where he has to go. It's either he has to be in the NHL or he has to go back to the OHL to play with Sudbury. And he's too good to play in the OHL right now, and he's not ready NHL wise because there's still stuff that he needs to work on. And I think he's just going to go back to the OHL and score a bajillion points this year before he gets a chance to maybe get to play in AHL games at the end of the season. So, but the scoring, the way he can drive to the net, the way he is like, his passing, the way, and the dude like plays a bajillion minute, absolute freak of nature when it comes to like the conditioning aspect. Sudbury would just throw him out there for like minutes at a time, which on his shifts, and he just kind of go out there and just do his thing. And so still, I think needs to kind of work on what happens when you don't have the puck. I think maybe a little bit of decision making here and there. And of course, as with every young player, what happens in the defensive zone. But I still think Quentin Musty has, like, worst case, I think for Musty is he's a second line guy. Top, if not, you're looking at like Musty. I mean, we saw Musty and Will Smith just have absolute like magic together. Musty, Smith, and then if you want to put Kasper Halttunen in the line, if you want to put William Macklin, like there's just so many options if you want to keep those two guys together, because I think their skill, especially Will Smith and Quentin Musty, their skill sets match their hockey IQ, just kind of the way they read each other, and you saw it I know it's a prospect game, prospect scrimmage, but you just saw the way those two guys just kind of feed off each other. Yeah, it's going to be magical when those two guys play together in the NHL. So wouldn't be surprised if Musty gets his 6 games this year before going back to the OHL. I know it's going to be really tough, especially with the roster, the way it's kind of expected to be constructed right now. But if Logan Couture is not healthy enough, maybe Musty gets a spot for his 9 games and then heads back, and then Bordelot comes back, or Musty comes up, or not Musty, or Couture comes, whatever. There's ways to kind of figure things out here. So next would be Sam Dickinson, the first round pick this year, 11th overall, out of London. 86 games, 22 goals, 61 assists, 264 shots on goal for London. Dickinson, the floor is extremely high, right? The worst case scenario is you're getting a second pairing defenseman who's going to play a bajillion minutes a night and probably be a really good shutdown defenseman, the way he plays defense already as an 18-year-old. Though I did my Sam Dickinson deep dive. He's very physical. He knows how to use his body. He's very good on the rush and kind of his positioning, and the way he kind of mirrors and is able to push guys to keep the guys on the outside. If he puts everything together, especially with the kind of processing part of the game, he has first line potential with him, and he's one of the rare players who combines a very high floor with an extremely high ceiling. Does he hit a ceiling? Who knows? But if he does, like, you have a ridiculously good defenseman, ridiculously good two-way defenseman, which is right the unicorn of, I can help drive a ton of offense, and I can also be a shutdown defenseman. And Sam Dickinson has that potential for the Sharks. So, yeah, I think he's the best Sharks defenseman prospect in their pool. Could be the best Sharks defensive prospect in a long, long time. Like a long, long time. So, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about Dickinson. I know there was very much a lot of Z Boom or bust, myself included, but like, guys, Sam Dickinson is going to be ridiculously good. So, and that leaves, of course, the last two, which I'm sure you can guess the order. Number 2 would be Will Smith, who's been the number 1 guy since he got drafted last year, taking that spot from William Macklin. But Will Smith, first round pick, 4th overall, 41 games last year, 25 goals, 46 assists, 130 shots on goal. One of the best freshman seasons in terms of scoring that we've ever seen. Of course, signed his ELC and will probably not be on the list next season, as he'll probably play his 50 NHL games and will graduate to not a prospect. So Smith, I think there's been so much Celebrini talk, who we'll talk about here in just a second, where I feel like Smith maybe has gotten a little bit lost on, like, oh yeah, Will Smith's really, really good too. So yeah, the Sharks, if Smith can, he's got some work to do in the defensive zone, but I think what he does creatively in the offensive zone, if you can surround him with the right players, I think the Sharks are going to have the best 2C in the entire NHL, especially when you pair him with the number 1 prospect in the Sharks prospect pool, and that is Macklin Celebrini, of course. Hobie Baker winner, 38 games, 32 goals, 32 assists, 179 shots on goal with Boston University last year. He's the best prospect who's not, the best prospect in the NHL, or best prospect in the world right now. If you go by my rules of 50 games or less, Connor Bedard, get out of here. He's the best prospect in the world right now. Over Demidov, over Michkov, over everybody. I'm taking Macklin Celebrini. Yeah, he's good. He's really good. And the Sharks are going to be awesome with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith down the center for the next 15 years. It's gonna be great, guy. Oh my god, it's gonna be so good. Yeah. So we all know it's Macklin Celebrini's number one, and he won't be. This will be the only time we get to rank him number one because he'll play his 50 NHL games unless something catastrophically bad goes wrong, and then he will graduate to being, even if he doesn't play his 50 game, he's probably going to graduate to being an NHL player by the time we do this thing again next season. So. Or next off season. So yes, Macklin Celebrini, he's good. The Sharks prospect pool, insanely good, guys. Like just the amount of first round picks, and just top quality, right? I mean, you got Celebrini first overall pick, Will Smith, 4th overall, Dickinson, 11th overall, Quentin Musty, 26th overall, who the Sharks should have. Again, Mike Greer glassed himself to sleep every night thinking about how you got Quentin Musty at 26. Shakir Mukhamadullin, 20th overall. Kasper Halttunen was a 2nd round pick. Igor Chernyshov, first pick in the 2nd round, should have been a pick in should have been picked in the teens. Bystedt, like 1st round pick. David Edstrom, first round, just ridiculously stacked prospect pool, guys. This is why you lose all the games, so that way you can pick really awesome players to be good in the future. So that's going to be it for me today. Please, if you have not already, make sure, if you're especially listening to this on Apple, leave a nice 5-star review. You can write me a little message, say how much it helps the podcast continue to grow. We've had a lot of growth this summer, of course, with Macklin Celebrini. I appreciate every one of you guys for helping that out. So if you're listening on Apple, give a little 5-star review, leave a nice little review, let everyone know the show is worth checking out. If you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so as well. And when you guys are done with this, go check out one of the other Locked On podcasts, especially the Bay Area ones. Locked On Niners get you guys geared up for training camp. Locked On Giants, Locked On A's, Locked On Warriors. They've got you guys covered with all the latest news surrounding your favorite team. So be back tomorrow. Make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. You can follow the show on YouTube, you can follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.